The crystalline walls of the Galactic Council's arena stretched impossibly high, their surface reflecting the assembled representatives of 47 different species. Ambassador Kane stood at the human delegation's assigned platform, his weathered face betraying none of the tension that coiled in his stomach. Beside him, young Tom shifted nervously, his slight frame appearing almost comically fragile among the towering aliens that surrounded them. "Are you certain about this, Ambassador?" Tom whispered, his voice barely audible above the chittering, roaring, and mechanical sounds of the alien crowd. "I mean, look at them." Kane followed the boy's gaze to the Corvan delegation across the arena. Their species stood nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies covered in natural armor plating that had evolved over millions of years of warfare. Their leader, a massive warrior named Brutus, flexed his 4 arms while studying the humans with obvious disdain. Each of his limbs ended in claws that could tear through steel, and his skull was reinforced with bone ridges that could crack stone. "The trial by combat is the only way Earth gains a voice in the Council," Kane replied steadily. "Every species must prove their warrior spirit before being accepted as equals." The arena's central platform began to glow, and High Counselor Vex's voice boomed across the space through universal translators. "The human delegation has requested recognition within our assembly. As per ancient law, they must demonstrate the martial prowess of their species through single combat." A rumble of what sounded like laughter echoed from various alien sections. The Zephyrians, with their crystalline bodies, chimed in musical tones that translated as mockery. The reptilian Soros delegates hissed their amusement. Even the normally stoic mechanoids seemed to emit satisfied clicks from their metal frames. "This is their champion?" Brutus's voice carried easily across the arena, his translator giving his words a deep, threatening resonance. "A sapling barely." "Grown? My youngest hatchling could snap this creature in half." Tom's jaw tightened, but he stepped forward. "I volunteer to represent humanity." The arena fell silent for a moment, before erupting in what could only be described as universal hilarity. Species that had been enemies for millennia found common ground in their shared disbelief at human audacity. Kane placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. "Remember what we discussed. You just need to." "I know," Tom interrupted, his voice carrying a strange certainty. "I know exactly what I need to do." The combat platform rose from the arena floor, a perfect circle of polished stone, 20 meters in diameter. Tom walked toward it with steady steps, his sneakers squeaking slightly against the metal walkway. The sound seemed absurdly mundane in this temple of galactic warfare. Brutus bounded onto the platform with predatory grace, his massive frame casting a shadow over Tom's small form. The size difference was so extreme that several alien species stopped their jeering to watch with genuine curiosity about how this would unfold. "Begin." Vex's command echoed through the arena. Brutus didn't hesitate. His massive arms swung in a casual backhand, the kind of strike a human might use to swat a fly. The blow connected with Tom's skull with a sickening crack that reverberated through the arena's acoustic systems. Tom's head snapped to the side with impossible violence. The sound of bone breaking was audible even to the aliens in the highest seats. His small body crumpled to the platform like a discarded toy, blood spreading in a dark pool beneath his still form. The arena erupted in triumphant roars from the Corvan delegation. Other species joined in, their various forms of communication, creating a cacophony of victory. This was exactly what they had expected from the soft, weak humans who dared to seek equality among the stars. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-Fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these front lines to you. But Ambassador Kane didn't move from his position. He stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on Tom's motionless form, with an expression that might have been anticipation rather than grief. The other human delegates remained equally calm, their faces showing none of the horror that the aliens expected. "Is that it?" Brutus bellowed, raising his 4 arms in triumph. "Are humans so fragile that a single tap ends their champion?" He kicked Tom's body dismissively, sending it sliding across the platform. More laughter erupted from the assembled aliens. Some began to leave their seats, considering the trial concluded. But something was wrong. The human delegates weren't conceding. They weren't weeping or protesting or demanding medical attention for their fallen champion. They were simply watching, waiting, as if this gruesome display was exactly what they had expected. And then, impossibly, Tom's fingers twitched. The movement was subtle at first, a barely perceptible twitch of Tom's index finger that only the most observant aliens noticed. But within moments, his entire hand began to flex, digits curling and uncurling with mechanical precision. The pool of blood beneath his head had stopped spreading, and if one looked carefully, it seemed to be slowly receding. High Counselor Vex leaned forward on his elevated platform, his ancient eyes focusing on the human boy's form. What is this? Tom's skull, which had been visibly crushed and misshapen from Brutus's devastating blow, began to emit a soft crackling sound. The broken bones were moving, realigning themselves with systematic precision. The compound fractures sealed themselves, and the depression in his cranium gradually filled out until his head resumed its normal shape. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Helix, the Zephyrian medical observer. Her crystalline form flickered with nervous energy. No organic being can regenerate from such catastrophic cranial damage. But Tom's chest was rising and falling with steady breathing. His eyes, which had been lifeless and glassy, suddenly snapped open with startling clarity. He rolled over and pushed himself up to his hands and knees, blood still staining his hair but his face completely unmarked. The arena fell into stunned silence. 47 different species watched in disbelief as the human boy stood up, brushed the dust from his clothes, and turned to face Brutus with a slight smile. "That actually hurt," Tom said conversationally, rolling his shoulders as if working out muscle stiffness. "Thank you." Brutus took an involuntary step backward, his forearms trembling slightly. You were dead. I felt your skull collapse. Under my strike." "You did." Tom nodded agreeably. "You hit me perfectly. Maximum force, perfect angle, complete structural failure of my cranium. Under normal circumstances, that would have killed any human instantly." "Then how?" "Because these aren't normal circumstances." Tom's voice carried a strange quality now, as if speaking from a great depth. "You see, Brutus, you've just activated something that's been dormant in our species for thousands of years. We call it the Lazarus Protocol." Ambassador Kane stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly across the silent arena. "Every species here evolved through natural selection and environmental pressures. The Corvin developed armor plating to survive their harsh world. The Zephyrians became crystalline to harness solar energy. The Sorrows gained their regenerative abilities through constant warfare." He gestured toward Tom, who was now examining his hands with scientific curiosity. "Humans evolved something different. We developed the ability to adapt in real time to lethal threats. Our bodies can rewrite their own biological programming when faced with extinction-level trauma." Tom flexed his fingers, and the assembled aliens could see that his bone structure had subtly changed. His frame appeared denser, more robust, as if his skeleton had been reinforced with material stronger than the original calcium phosphate. "The first death activates the protocol," Tom explained, his voice carrying an eerie calm. "My bones are now approximately 3 times harder than before. My muscle density has increased by 40%. My neural pathways have been optimized for combat reflexes." Dr. Helix's crystalline form was pulsing with rapid calculations, but the energy requirements, the biological impossibility of such rapid reconstruction, is only impossible if you assume we're operating within normal biological parameters, Kane replied. "Humans aren't just another species, Doctor. We're the universe's answer to the question of what happens when a species evolves not just to survive, but to thrive through apocalyptic trauma." Brutus was backing away now, his earlier confidence completely shattered. This is some kind of trick. Some technology hidden in his body. Tom laughed, a sound that somehow carried undertones of machinery and storm winds. "No tricks, Brutus. Just evolution. You wanted to test humanity's warrior spirit? You've awakened something that has been sleeping since our species left Earth." The massive Corvin warrior looked around the arena desperately, seeking support from his fellow delegates. But the other species were watching with growing alarm rather than amusement. They were beginning to understand that they had fundamentally misjudged what humans were capable of. "The trial continues," Tom announced, settling into a combat stance. That looked both familiar and utterly alien. "Unless you'd like to concede?" Brutus's pride overcame his fear. With a roar of rage, he charged forward, all four arms extended to crush this impossible human boy who refused to stay dead. But Tom was no longer the same fragile creature who had entered the arena. As Brutus's claws descended toward him, Tom moved with inhuman speed and precision, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to perceive the attack in slow motion. The real fight was about to begin. Tom's enhanced perception slowed the world around him to a crawl. He could see every muscle fiber in Brutus's massive arms as they contracted, could track the exact trajectory of each clawed hand as it descended toward him. The Corvan warriors. Attack, which would have been lightning fast to his previous human senses, now appeared as deliberate as a falling leaf. Tom stepped sideways with fluid grace, his movements so precisely calculated that Brutus's claws passed mere millimeters from his face. The massive alien's momentum carried him forward, and Tom's enhanced reflexes allowed him to deliver a devastating uppercut to the warrior's exposed solar plexus. The impact sent Brutus flying backward across the platform, his armored body creating a spider web of cracks in the stone where he landed. The arena erupted in shocked gasps and alarmed chittering as the aliens witnessed a human boy launch a 3-meter-tall warrior like a projectile. But Tom's display of power had triggered something else entirely. The other members of the human delegation began to stir, their bodies responding to the combat pheromones that Tom's enhanced physiology was now producing. Ambassador Kane's eyes took on the same strange depth as Tom's, and his frame seemed to expand slightly beneath his formal diplomatic robes. "What's happening to them?" High Counselor Vex demanded, his voice carrying a note of panic that hadn't been heard in the council chambers for centuries. Dr. Helix's crystalline form was flickering rapidly as she processed the biological data her sensors were collecting. "The boy's pheromone output is triggering a cascade reaction in the other humans. Their adrenal systems are activating in ways I've never seen before." The human security officer, a woman named Kelly, who had been dismissed as ceremonial, suddenly moved with the same inhuman speed as Tom. Her muscles visibly swelled beneath her uniform as her body began its own enhancement process. The diplomatic aide, an elderly man called Frank, straightened to his full height as his spine lengthened and his bone density increased. "The Lazarus Protocol isn't individual," Kane explained, his voice now carrying the same mechanical undertone as Tom's. "It's species-wide. When one human is pushed beyond their limits, we all evolve together." Brutus struggled to his feet, his armor cracked and his breathing labored. "Impossible. No species can share evolutionary adaptations in real time." "No species you've encountered," Tom corrected, dodging another wild swing from the increasingly desperate Corvan warrior. "But humans aren't from your part of the galaxy. We evolved in isolation, under conditions that would have destroyed any other intelligent species." He caught Brutus's arm mid-swing, his enhanced grip crushing the alien's natural armor like paper. "We survived ice ages that lasted for millennia. We endured asteroid impacts that blocked out our sun for years. We fought through plagues that killed 90% of our population and came back stronger." The arena's other alien species were becoming increasingly agitated. The Soros delegation was hissing in alarm, their reptilian forms coiling in defensive positions. The mechanoids were running rapid calculations, their optical sensors focused on the transforming humans with mechanical precision. "Every time our species faced extinction," Kelly added, her voice carrying easily across the arena despite her normal human vocal cords, "we didn't just survive, we adapted. We became something new." Frank, the elderly aide, was now standing perfectly straight, his aged appearance having melted away to reveal a physique that looked like it was carved from living steel. "The Lazarus Protocol is why we never developed natural weapons or armor like the rest of you. We didn't need them. We became the weapon." Brutus was backing away now, his forearms trembling as he realized the magnitude of what he had unleashed. "You're not warriors, you're monsters." Tom's smile was both human and utterly alien, We're survivors. And you just taught us how to survive you." The massive Corvan warrior looked around desperately, seeking support from his fellow delegates. But he found only fear in their alien eyes. The Zephyrians were harmonizing in distress frequencies. The Sorrows were beginning to shed their skin in stress responses. Even the normally emotionless mechanoids were displaying error messages across their optical arrays. "This trial has gone far enough," High Counselor Vex announced, his voice carrying the authority of millennia. "The human delegation has demonstrated—" "No," Tom interrupted, his enhanced voice carrying with impossible authority. "The trial continues until one of us yields or dies. Those are the rules you established." He turned back to Brutus, who was now desperately trying to signal his own delegation for assistance. "You wanted to test humanity's warrior spirit, Brutus. You wanted to prove that we were too weak to deserve a place among the stars." Tom's form was continuing to evolve, his human appearance now showing clear signs of the biological optimization that was rewriting his genetic code. His eyes had taken on a metallic sheen, and his muscles moved with mechanical precision beneath skin that seemed to be developing a subtle armor-like quality. "So let's finish this test." The Corvan delegation couldn't stand by and watch their champion be systematically dismantled by what they had assumed was a helpless human child. 3 additional warriors leaped onto the combat platform, their massive forms surrounding Tom in a circle of claws and armor. "This violates the single combat protocol," Ambassador Kane observed calmly, but made no move to intervene. High Counselor Vex was frantically consulting his ancient texts. "The rules state that additional combatants may join if the original warrior requests assistance." "I didn't request," Brutus began, but his words were cut off as Tom moved with inhuman speed. The enhanced human boy had anticipated this development. His improved tactical processing allowed him to calculate the attack patterns of all 4 Corvan warriors simultaneously. As they closed in, Tom's body seemed to blur, moving between their strikes with impossible precision. He grabbed the first warrior's arm and used the alien's own momentum to hurl him into the second. The impact of their armored bodies colliding created a sound like a building collapse, and both warriors went down in a tangle of limbs and cracked plating. The third warrior's claws raked across Tom's back, finally managing to land a blow. But instead of the expected spray of blood and torn flesh, the alien's claws struck something that felt like reinforced steel. Tom's skin had developed a subcutaneous armor layer that turned the devastating attack into little more than an annoyance. "Thank you," Tom said conversationally as he spun around and delivered a backhand that sent the third warrior flying off the platform entirely. "I was wondering when my defensive adaptations would activate." The human delegation was now fully transformed. Kelly had become something that looked like a human-shaped weapon, her movements precise and deadly. Frank appeared to be carved from living granite, his aged features now showing the kind of weathered strength that spoke of geological timescales rather than mere decades. But it was Ambassador Kane who had undergone the most dramatic transformation. His diplomatic facade had fallen away to reveal something that made the assembled aliens recoil in primal terror. He stood nearly 3 meters tall now, his formal robes having torn away to reveal a physique that seemed to have been designed specifically for warfare. "The Lazarus Protocol has different expressions," Kane explained, his voice now carrying harmonics that made the arena's crystal walls resonate. "Tom became our champion. Kelly became our weapon. Frank became our shield." He gestured to himself, with movements that were both graceful and terrifying. "I became our general." The remaining alien delegations were becoming increasingly agitated. The Sorrows were beginning to organize into defensive formations. The Zephyrians were resonating at frequencies that indicated extreme distress. Even the mechanoids were displaying warning signals across their optical arrays. "What do you want?" High Counselor Vex demanded, his ancient voice carrying a note of fear that hadn't been heard in the council chambers for millennia. "Recognition." Kane replied simply, "The same thing we came here requesting. The right to speak for Earth in the Galactic Council." Tom was now facing Brutus alone again, the other 3 Corvan warriors having been systematically neutralized. The massive alien warrior was breathing heavily, his natural armor cracked and leaking the blue fluid that served as his blood. "You're Not the same species that requested recognition, Brutus gasped, his 4 arms hanging uselessly at his sides. You've become something else entirely. We've become what we always were, Tom corrected, his transformed features still recognizably human despite the evolutionary improvements. We just needed the right stimulus to remember. He advanced on Brutus with measured steps, each movement calculated for maximum psychological impact. Your species developed armor to survive your world's dangers. Our species developed the ability to become whatever we needed to be to survive any danger. The arena was now completely silent except for the sound of Tom's footsteps on the cracked stone platform. 47 different species watched in fascination and terror as humanity's true nature was revealed. The trial by combat was designed to test warrior spirit, Tom continued, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the arena. You assumed that meant physical strength or natural weapons. But true warrior spirit isn't about how hard you can hit. He stopped directly in front of Brutus, who was now trembling despite his massive size. It's about how hard you can be hit and keep fighting. How completely you can be destroyed and still find a way to come back stronger. Tom placed his hand on Brutus's chest, and the alien warrior could feel the inhuman strength contained within that seemingly gentle touch. You killed me, Brutus. You crushed my skull and ended my life, and I thanked you for it. The massive Corvan warrior's eyes widened with understanding and terror. Because you needed to die to become this, exactly. Tom's smile was both human and utterly alien. So thank you for teaching us how to survive you. Now, are you ready to yield? Brutus's massive form slowly sank to his knees, his 4 arms spread wide in the universal gesture of surrender. The arena fell into absolute silence as the most feared warrior in the Corvan delegation formally yielded to a human boy who had been dead less than an hour earlier. I yield, Brutus whispered, his voice carrying clearly through the arena's acoustic systems. Humanity has proven their warrior spirit. The assembled aliens seemed to collectively exhale, a sound like wind through a canyon of crystalline formations. But the relief was short-lived as they realized that the transformed humans showed no signs of returning to their previous state. High Counselor Vex stood slowly, his ancient frame trembling with the weight of what he had witnessed. The trial by combat is concluded. Humanity has demonstrated the martial prowess required for recognition within the Galactic Council. Tom helped Brutus to his feet, his enhanced strength making the massive alien seem almost weightless. No hard feelings, he said with genuine warmth. You were just following your nature. We all were. Ambassador Kane approached the platform, his transformed appearance causing the nearest alien delegates to instinctively back away. The Lazarus Protocol is permanent, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the arena. We cannot return to what we were before. Dr. Helix's crystalline form flickered with rapid calculations. The biological impossibility of what you've demonstrated. It suggests that humans are not actually native to this galaxy. Kane nodded approvingly. Very astute, Doctor. Our species originated from a region of space where survival required constant adaptation to impossible conditions. We developed the ability to evolve in real time because staying the same meant extinction. The implications rippled through the assembled species like a shockwave. If humans were from outside their galaxy, it meant that there were potentially other regions of space where species had evolved under even more extreme conditions. But you came here seeking recognition, High Counselor Vex observed carefully. Why join our council if you're already beyond our understanding? Tom stepped forward, his transformed features still showing traces of the boy he had been. Because strength without purpose is just destruction. We didn't come here to conquer or to prove our superiority. We came here to find our place among the stars. Kelly, her weapon-like form somehow managing to project serenity, added, The Lazarus Protocol responds to threats. If there are no threats, we can exist peacefully alongside other species. Frank, his granite-like appearance softened by genuine compassion, gestured to the assembled aliens. Many of your species are young, still learning to survive in a universe that doesn't care about their existence. We remember what that was like. Kane's terrifying general form somehow conveyed paternal warmth. Earth requests recognition not just for ourselves, but so that we can serve as protectors for species who haven't yet developed the ability to protect themselves. The arena buzzed with translation activity as the various species processed this unexpected development. The humans weren't seeking dominance. They were offering to serve as guardians for the galactic community. High Counselor Vex consulted with his advisors for several minutes before speaking again. The Council recognizes Earth as a member species with full voting rights. Additionally, we formally request that humanity accept the role of galactic protectors with the authority to defend member species from external threats. Tom looked around the arena at the assembled aliens who had been laughing at him less than 2 hours earlier. Now they watched him with a mixture of awe and gratitude, understanding that they had gained something far more valuable than another. Council member, we accept, Tom said simply. But we'll need to establish some protocols. The Lazarus Protocol activates in response to existential threats. If we're going to serve as protectors, we need to ensure that we only enhance when absolutely necessary. Kane stepped forward, his general's bearing conveying both strength and restraint. We propose the establishment of a galactic defense force, staffed by volunteers from all member species. Humans will serve as the final line of defense, activating our full capabilities only when conventional forces are insufficient. The various species began to murmur among themselves, the initial fear giving way to excitement at the possibilities. The Corvin delegation, led by a battered but respectful Brutus, were the first to volunteer for the new defense force. As the council session concluded with formal ceremonies and the establishment of new protocols, Tom found himself standing alone on the combat platform, where his human life had ended and his enhanced existence had begun. Ambassador Kane approached, his transformed appearance no longer seeming monstrous, but rather like the physical embodiment of protective strength. Any regrets about what happened today? Tom considered the question seriously, then shook his head. Brutus was right about one thing: I did need to die to become this. But I think this is what I was always meant to be. He looked up at the arena's crystalline walls, which now displayed the symbols of 48 member species instead of 47. Besides, someone needs to watch over them. They're all so young compared to what we've become. Kane smiled, his transformed features managing to convey both pride and affection. Welcome to the next phase of human evolution, Tom. I think you're going to like what we become next. As the first human galactic champion, Tom had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their ability to avoid death, but in their capacity to return from it stronger than before. The universe had just gained its most dedicated protectors, and they would ensure that no species would ever again face extinction alone. The boy who had died on the arena floor was gone forever, but what had taken his place was something far more remarkable: a guardian who had learned to turn mortality itself into his greatest weapon.